Hey everybody, welcome to the MMA podcast. Karyn Bryant here is still in Abu Dhabi. Sunday night for me.
What's up, guys? Alan, Jouban here with you as well. And it's Sunday morning here in LA.
That's right. So obviously last night we had Holm versus Irene Aldana in the main event. So we'll talk about that and the Germaine to Randamie fight with Juliana Peña. Condit came back and got a victory. I really was hoping for a draw on that one, if I'm honest. But anyway, Alan, first and foremost, how's your training going? Because you got a fight coming up.
Yeah, November 21st, still fighting in Vegas. I feel great. Honestly, I'm very excited to get back in there. My body feels good. I'm learning a lot of new stuff. And then seeing people like Holm, who's there around the same age as me, people like Condit making a return, everyone looking so good in this last card. It got me even more excited for my fight as well. But I'm excited to talk about these fights that we had last night.
Well, very cool. And it's funny, too, because, I told you the other day, but we need to let everybody know that I actually brought you up to Carlos when we were in our fighter meeting. Yeah. And, I was like, we may as well just start with that fight. But I was like, hey, Carlos, not for nothing. I call him Los. Like, I'm joking with him. Like he's such a good dude. First and foremost, Can we just talk about what a good dude he is? I know you've always been a fan of him too, right? Like he's just like, besides being a great fighter, he's just a really nice guy.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's a nice guy. I think that's why everybody likes him, because he's got that double personality. He's just a super calm, kind of passive type of personality, a guy. But when he gets in there, he's that fighter, man, that brings the violence. And you look at him, you see him and Dan Hardy doing the post-fight interview. Condit hasn't aged in 10 years. It's crazy. I don't know what the guy's drinking in Albuquerque, but he still looks the same that he did when he was, the interim champion years ago.
Yeah, no, it's funny too, because he knocked out Dan. I think it was with a flying knee or something like that. And so
hook, yeah.
Oh, was it a hook? Yeah, because during the broadcast. And Dan is so cool about it. Like he has no ego with stuff like that. Like he gives all full respect to, his opponents and stuff like that. He just loves the fight game. And so he was saying stuff on the broadcast like, I was in there with him and stuff. He's like, I don't remember, you know what I mean? Or whatever. Like, I don't remember fighting Carlos, but I know I did or whatever. And it was kind of cool to see them together in the octagon after, it's funny that, and because Dan is actually still trying to make a comeback, but if he comes back, he's thinking he would probably fight at 55, right, which would be cool. But anyway, so in this fight, he was going up against Court McGee, and it's two veterans and stuff, and Court had told us before, he's like, hey, the thing is even though I've been doing this for a really long time, like I still have a lot of things like techniques and all these things that I've never shown. And, I really think the way that Carlos fights is going to allow me to bring out all this other stuff, which I thought was kind of like a cool idea. I actually was really happy that there were no takedowns in that fight. You know what I mean? I was happy that we got to just see Carlos do his thing, and Court, just both of them just threw down. But I want to know your thoughts on the end of the first round, because Carlos landed that punch, broke Court's nose, and for a second, Carlos told me after, he's like, I think Court thought the fight was over.
Oh, wow. Really? That Court thought the fight was over.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's like, the way he kind of got up after, he's like, I think he thought maybe it was done, like he got knocked out or whatever.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I remember there was kind of a delayed, awkward response between both of them. Carlos landed that shot. Court went down, and then, Court McGee kind of got back up a bit confused, and Carlos was still kind of staring at him, trying to see what was going on as the fight ended, how badly hurt is he. But what a way to end the first round. I thought before that punch was landed, it was kind of a pretty good, closely contested fight. And we were seeing right away that Carlos was looking good again. He was looking light on his feet. We were seeing him staying in the southpaw side a lot more than just orthodox. He was switching back and forth, making it very, very hard for Court to get a beat on him. And then that punch landed at the very end of the round. And after that, I thought we kind of saw the fire come back in Carlos's eyes. He goes, okay, I hurt the guy. I see blood. I'm winning this fight now. And you saw a bit of a resurgence in confidence in Carlos. And then the second and the third round, still a very competitive fight amongst both guys. Court stayed in the fight the entire time. He was not backing out. But I saw at least bits and flashes of the old Carlos, the confident guy leading the fight, going for the kill rather than just being in there tangoing with somebody. So it was good to see. It was fun to see that side of Carlos again, and to get the win, it's only going to give him more momentum going forward and looking for other fights. I know. I'm so glad you mentioned my name in the
I did.
Because I want that fight because, like you said, it's a guy that I respect. I've always liked to be a fun, fan-friendly fight. But I got to get in line. I got to get in line right now because I saw Matt Brown immediately tweeted, you know what, we should make this fight. Matt Brown wants that fight. Carlos was talking about fighting Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is looking for a fight. So I know Carlos is probably looking for a big name, or he's kind of in the same boat as me where I have a tough fight ahead of me. But once they get through that fight, I'd like to fight somebody more of these veterans, more of these legend-type names. And I think Carlos is kind of thinking the same thing at this point in his career as well.
Yeah, he is. And it's funny because he definitely still, is like, oh, I want to move forward, and everything. Because he was on a 5-fight skid or whatever. And he does want to move forward. But at the same time, it's like you don't want to give Carlos some young, you don't want to give him Khamzat Chimaev. You know what I mean? It's like you want to give him somebody age appropriate or, you know what I mean, veteran level appropriate. And when I brought you up in the meeting, he was like, I've actually always thought about that fight. He's like, I think Alan and I would actually have a really, really good fight. And I was like, shoot, I wish we could record these fighter meetings, because I thought the same, obviously I think the same thing. Like, I love the same thing, like I just said, that Court, they never took it to the ground. Like, I know both of you would just want to stand and strike. You both are flashy. Like, it would just be one of those fights that I think would be really, really good. And neither of you would run from each other. And you know what I mean? Like, I think it would be great. But afterwards, he didn't necessarily give me any specific names, but I think Matt Brown was somebody he was maybe talking about fighting before anyway, or something like that. So I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I didn't realize him and Matt Brown were scheduled to fight twice already, and apparently both times it fell out. So, and I also didn't realize Matt Brown is going through an injury right now, because I saw Matt on his tweet said, once I'm fully recovered or fully healthy again, this is the fight that I would like. So Matt, he. Not to change the subject to Matt, but I think Matt came up short in his last fight against a young, up-and-coming opponent, and since then has acquired an injury that he's dealing with. So I guess it all depends on timelines right now. It's how soon does Carlos want to get back in there? Because Carlos has been taking dramatic weights in between his fights.
Right, long layoffs,
He's only fought a number of times in the last 5 years. He's kind of not done as great as we expected in all those fights. So now that he got a victory, he seems to be relatively unhurt. I wouldn't say unscathed. He definitely took some strikes in that fight, but it doesn't seem like he acquired any substantial injuries. So does he want to get back on the horse right away and fight in 3 or 4 months? Does he want to kind of ease out of it, enjoy the feeling of victory? Because that's one thing that I always think about. Like, if you haven't fought in a while or you haven't had a victory in a while, you get the victory, and there's 2 options. You say, you know what? Like, this is a great feeling. I want to keep this momentum, because momentum is everything in fighting. I want to keep this momentum. I want to jump back in there and keep this going. But then there's the other side of the coin that you go, you know what? I just got the W. Like, it feels good. Like, I want to go around and people, when I walk in the store, they go, what's up, champ? Yo,
what's up, dude? Yeah, exactly.
Enjoy it. Let some sponsors jump on board again. Like, all those things. So you got to see where Carlos is at mentally, and then he'll decide that. But, he doesn't seem, after last night's fight, that he's going to be retiring anytime soon. It seems like he still has it in the gas tank, or he still has it physically. It's just mentally, how often does he want to fight at this stage in his career? How frequently does he want to do that again?
Yeah, and honestly, mentally is what really he says the issues were, right? Because I asked him, in hindsight, dude, like, what went wrong in those fights? Because granted, you were only fighting good people. So lots of people lose to Cowboy Oliveira. That was a fight I covered. And like, you know what I mean? He's only going to fight good people or whatever. But at the same time, I was like, hey, what do you think happened? And he said, he had a lot of stuff going on. He was going through a divorce at one point, he this and that. He's like, look, my head wasn't there and I wasn't focused and I didn't show up on fight night. And he said, it kind of sucks because, this happens and you get the, the losses and stuff like that. He's like, but I know I wasn't really there, mentally, but now he seems like he's in a much better place. And he took the time off. He got the hunger back and it seemed like, everything was working for him, but he still has such a chill approach, in the meetings and just seeing him around. He's got such a low key vibe. Like, he's just such an easygoing guy. But then of course, when you see him in there, like, you definitely did see the natural born killer coming back, right? Like, after he knew, in poor Court, my God, that nose was trashed. I saw that. I was like, oh my God, because I was sitting right by the octagon for that fight. And I feel so bad because Court's such a good guy. And, it was a really hard fight for him, but he just sucked it up and kept going, all the way to the end. And I don't know. I felt bad that he had to lose. He's got a baby coming in January and stuff like that. And he's such a good guy, but I was happy to see Carlos come back in the form that we're used to seeing him. You know what I mean? And I just think the next fight that he does take, like you said, I don't know how soon he will, but the next one's going to be even better, I think.
Yeah. And, it sucks to see Court take an L that night. But, on the plus side of it, we got to see a good, fun Carlos again. And Court lost, but it was still, like you said, a competitive, fun fight that everybody thoroughly enjoyed. It's not a fight that he's going to look back on and be like, I got embarrassed, I got slapped, anything went right. I made these bad decisions. Everything was just a good competitive fight. Carlos was a little bit of the better man. You said Carlos, he's got that laid back, chill personality. Even during fight week, you see that in his interviews. As you were saying that, Keanu Reeves popped up in my head. He's like the Keanu Reeves of MMA.
He is kind of
you know what I mean? He's got this cool kind of laid back approach and vibe about him, and he's kind of he kind of does his thing, and people all like him. People seem to respect him, his fighting style and his personality. And lastly, he took a couple L's over the years. And as you said, he was fighting top-notch opponents. Yeah. But all those opponents were really, when you look at him in large part, pressure fighters. There were people like Neil Magny that put you on the cage. There were people like Michael Chiesa who tried to just blanket you right away. And so that's not stylistically, when you look at his background, he's a jiu-jitsu striker guy. He's not really a strong wrestler. And his body type, being 6'2", somewhat lanky, doesn't fare well against people putting him on the cage, changing levels, staying on him. He always has looked beautiful inside the middle of the octagon, dancing with somebody who wants to dance with him. And so he got an opponent. He got an opponent in court. McGee said, I'm going to dance, I'm going to stand and bang, and we're going to see what happens. And that's why we get to see a little bit of the old Carlos again. So I think smart matchmaking upon the UFC will help resurgence in Carlos's career, not giving him people that are going to just put him on the cage. Put somebody in there like myself or like Matt Brown, who would stand and trade with him and put on entertaining fights.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree, because the last fight he had, was Michael Chiesa. He got Kimura'd by Michael in the second round. Then before that, it was Alex Oliveira, Cowboy Oliveira. I was at that fight. That was a guillotine. Before that, he lost the decision to Neil Magny. Before that, he got submitted by Damian Maia. Everybody gets submitted by Damian Maia. And then before that, and then before that, he lost a split decision to Robbie Lawler for the championship. You know what I mean? It's like he's just fighting good dudes.
That's exactly it. I mean, honestly, those are all tough people, and those are, and they're all people that fight a certain way, that get on you and blanket. Damian Maia, Michael Chiesa pretty much runs across the cage and tries to take you down right away. So maybe Carlos didn't really lose his step. It was just stylistically not good stylistic opponents for him. Not stylistically good opponents who were all in the top 15 caliber type of fighters. You put that all into the equation, it didn't fare well for him. Take somebody a little bit out of the top 15 who's more a predominant striker, boom, we have Carlos Condit back again. So matchmaking will be the key for his career.
Exactly. And I remember the Cowboy fight was actually going pretty well for him, I think, until it didn't. You know what I mean? But that was a competitive fight. And Cowboy's a guy that, he likes to strike and stuff like that. And he just got in a bad position, you know what I mean? But that fight, I remember, I do kind of feel like, why are the matchmakers putting him with wrestlers and jiu-jitsu guys? Why are you doing that? Nobody wants to see,
over and
we don't
over.
Want to see that, I don't know. As a fan, I don't. But like I said, he's just such a nice guy. So I'm happy to see him back. And the thing is if you fought him, I'd be like, oh, come on, man. That would suck.
A fight of the night draw. Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so that was impressive. That was the featured prelim. I want to ask you about Germaine de Randamie and Juliana Peña, because when we're talking about another striker, Germaine de Randamie, this was a woman who's a 10-time Muay Thai champion, world champion. She was 46-0 or something as a kickboxer. I've been a fan of hers in Strikeforce, and she's just a really, really cool girl. And so she comes out here and wins the first round. then Peña gets the second round because her grappling did take over. She was able to like close the distance and get Germaine, and she got her down on the canvas and stuff. But then there was actually a reversal. Germaine almost actually even sunk a Darce at one point. I mean, Von Flue. She almost got her, whatever, right? And so then, but anyway, the third round comes out and she ends up submitting Juliana Peña, which was very surprising to me because Juliana is a good grappler, and the only loss she has is to Valentina. But the funny, well, in the last, like 8 fights or whatever, she's like 7-1 in her last 8. But the funny thing is she told us before, she said, I thought that Valentina was going to be the same thing, like striker versus grappler. And I underestimated her on the canvas. And she said that she punched her way into a submission. And I was talking about that in like the story before, she came out. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, like same thing. Yeah. She probably underestimated Germaine's ground game. She saw her fight Amanda Nunes. She saw that Amanda Nunes won the fight by keeping Germaine on her back. I'm sure she thought, oh, the blueprint, get her on her ass, put her on her back, and she won't know what to do. And then Germaine like pulls off the guillotine. Like, what? Like, and she was so elated. She was so happy. Her first one ever. And she said that literally they've been drilling that like crazy ever since the Amanda fight. Because I was talking with her and her coaches and stuff after, and they were like, oh yeah, no, they drilled that stuff like crazy because they knew that everybody just thought that, oh yeah, all I'll do is take her down now.
That's good to know. That's good to know. You could see that Randamie's ground game has evolved. You saw the reversal during the fight. We saw the possible Von Flue attempt, and then we saw the guillotine at the end. So she's definitely been working on it. That guillotine that she got, those modified guillotine, no arm in guillotine. We've seen these throughout the course of fighting over the years. And the funny thing about them is that you don't necessarily have to be a high-level fighter. And I'm not saying this to take anything away from her, but you don't necessarily have to be a high-level submission expert to land these. But these will put out anybody. If you think about John Jones when he slept Lyoto Machida and he walks away, Lyoto Machida's laying there on the canvas unconscious. John Jones was like a blue belt at the time. Lyoto's a long-time black belt. Same thing here. When you get good at this technique, it's very hard because some things get locked in, but you can get out. But this is one of those submissions that if you get locked in this, it's really no getting out of it when somebody has it that deep. Randamie, though, she did a wonderful job. You can tell that she drilled it because she got in there and she made the adjustment, came underneath and tightened it up and cinched it up and then went to the ground and kind of used her body to not allow any escape. There was no scramble available. She tied up the legs. She had the head and neck tied up, and then it was just sunk in. I wish that the referee would have been a little bit more on top of it. It was a good referee, but I thought that she was out for about 3 or 4 seconds unconscious before they stopped it. But beautiful job. I mean, it was the last thing that any of us was expecting. I was thinking, she's going to cinch this in to hold back on the damage. She doesn't want to get punched. She's going to hold on to this, and then she's going to look for a sweep or something because, a lot of times when the strikers get taken down,
they just want to get up.
Yeah, and they hold on to submissions because they don't want to get punched themselves. But she had this sunk in. She locked it up at the top and the bottom of the body and put her to sleep and walked away. And Juliana Peña is left there on the canvas of the octagon unconscious. While, like you said, the multiple Muay Thai champion walked away. It was crazy to see that moment. I couldn't believe she went out like that. But it inspired me. Look, I'm a guy that I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, but I don't have a single submission in MMA. I just don't go for them. But when I see people like this going for them and submit them, it motivated me. But it was a beautiful performance. And I just want to say one thing about Peña, Juliana.
Yeah.
She is someone that she's got that thing that you can't teach. She's got this fire inside of her. Because when I look at her, I don't see the most polished fighter. If I'm being honest, she's not the most polished striker. And even though she's very good on the ground, she's not the most polished jiu-jitsu grappler.
Right.
But she's got this thing that you cannot teach. Where did you see when she would land punches on Germaine? She would come in there and say, I'm just going to bite down on my mouthpiece, and I'm going to throw a 3 and a 4 and a 5, and one of them's going to land. And eventually, Randamie would hit the cage, and Peña would land that punch. And you would see her landing punches on the bigger, stronger, taller striker, and then getting her to the ground. And she's got this grit about her. And so when you first see Juliana Peña, if you're unfamiliar to the sport, you might go, well, she doesn't seem that good. But then you watch her work, and she finds the openings, and she gets the job done. And that's what makes her such a dangerous opponent, because I think people get a little too comfortable. You can see Germaine. Germaine was starting to get a little comfortable, saying, I'm going to slip. I've got long arms. I'm going to keep you at bay. But then sometimes Peña said, screw it. I'm going to bite down my mouthpiece. I'm going to get inside. I'm going to touch you up. And she would do that now and then. She just got caught. But that's interesting to say that she noted in that one fight that the last time she got submitted, like I got a little overconfident. Let my guard down, and the same thing happened again in this one.
Yeah, so I think she's going to be kicking herself, because she literally was saying that was the biggest thing that she, biggest takeaway from her fight with Valentina, and she wasn't going to, do it again. And I agree that she has, she does have that fire. She's got that Latina, if we're being like, I know it's a stereotype, but I think in this case, it's a very positive stereotype. You know what I mean? That fire, that, like you said, that aggression, that kick-assness. You know what I mean? Like she is about it. She walks around with a lot of confidence. I think sometimes she might be overconfident is my thing. Like there's a couple times when, she in our meetings, she was talking about wanting to, get the title fight. And when you look at her record, she's only fought really top girls, you know what I mean? And the only loss was to Valentina, and, she beat Nico Montano, and she's beaten, Kat, like a lot. She's beaten a lot of really, 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 really tough girls. So I give her a lot of credit for that. But she sometimes comes off a little bit like, I don't know, just like a little bit too big of a chip on her shoulder. Do you know what I mean? Where you're sort of like, hey, look, these girls are all really good. Like, I'm not saying you should, I don't want to say like you should invest in the idea that you could lose, because I know you want to be confident, but at the same time, sometimes I wonder if she's just slightly overconfident. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I just wonder, I don't know. I don't know.
I think what you're alluding to, it is that Mexican, that confident, that get in there, that grit, and that she fights with, and she carries that in her.
Yeah, she's the Venezuelan Vixen. Like she's fiery. I get it, but there's times when I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'll agree. I think that her ability outweighs her skill. Like there's some areas that need to be polished. But her ability to get in there, and there's just some people who are good at finding your face with their fists. There's some people that are good at just passing your guard and locking on a submission and squeezing for almighty, and they get it. And she's one of those people. And so when you watch them, you said, Randamie, she's a monster. Like she's a big, tall, lanky woman who's athletic and sharp, and she's a precision striker. Like and then you look at the two body types and the speed and athletic ability and technique, and you go, oh my God, Peña's about to get worked. But then Peña goes in there and she's able to battle with these girls and totally. And so it's just a credit to her ability. But I know what you're saying, 100%. She's very confident that she's one of the best in the world. But I think that she hits a wall sometimes when she battles with people that, that give her a run for her money. And now she's starting to see that with some of the top girls. But you're right. She's fought since she's been in UFC, nothing but top girls since she's been inside the UFC.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is like I don't want, I'm not trying to be harsh or anything. Like, I mean, obviously you need to be confident. I'm not saying it's not, I don't know if I'm phrasing it right, but like, because like I said, I was sitting right by the octagon, and like you said, she'll bite down and just wail, and she tagged Germaine a lot. And, she's willing to go in there because she knew she had to close that distance. So she knew she was going to take some stuff. And there was one point, though, when she was looking to maybe either kind of get a single leg or something, and her head was so low. And I even said this to Germaine. I saw her at the pool, and I was like, I thought you were going to break her face, because like all you needed was one knee. I was like, dude, it actually really scared me, because I was like, I don't want her to break her face. Like I got really nervous for Juliana at that point, but it didn't happen, and she toughed it out and stuff. And so like I give her so much credit for that. But it's just I wonder. I don't know. I just going forward, like, because I guess part of the reason I'm saying this too is because she's so confident going in that she takes her losses really, really hard. Right. So I don't think I'm giving away any secrets at school here, but like she was devastated backstage, devastated, bawling her eyes out.
I didn't realize it. I didn't know.
Bawling her eyes out. And that's been the case in other fights as well. I've been I was talking to some people who you know, obviously I work with, who've covered other ones where literally they've told stories about like she wouldn't leave her locker room because she was so devastated and just bawling her eyes out and things like that. And so I guess that's my point is knowing how hard she takes the loss. And granted, you know, like I said, it's only been 2 now in the last 9 fights or whatever. I wonder if there's a way to sort of level that out a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like be super confident, but that so that you don't, if it doesn't go your way, it isn't that huge of a cataclysmic upset. You know what I mean? Because I don't want to see somebody take it that hard and just put a message out on Instagram or whatever that she'll be back stronger than ever, which I think is great. But I know for a fact she took it really, really hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I was going to dissect it, I also think it's a difference in being confident and doing the right thing, making the right decision, doing what your coaches are telling you. Make sure I'm always doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing, never being lazy, never giving anything up for free. But that's a different confidence. That's a confidence in doing what I'm supposed to do rather than a confidence in saying, like, I'm the best and I won't lose. And I'm not saying she said that, but you know what I'm getting at. Like, some people just are like, I'm going to win. I have it more than you. And some people have a confidence in, I'm confident in my training. My training is what gives me confidence because I know I've done everything I'm supposed to be. So maybe it's the difference in dissecting those two. That way she knows even if she did lose, she did all that she could in training. Right. And then she got the L and she did all she could. And it kind of gives you a bit of comfort knowing that, like, there was nothing more that I could have done. So I could sit with it. You know, it takes a day or two to mourn the loss, but then after that, you're over it.
Right. And that's the thing is I think that's the opposite because also it was just the way her personality is so different from Germaine. Germaine is like the most lighthearted, like she's just pure joy. I mean, she's a police officer in the Netherlands. Like she literally doesn't, like she has another job. It's like she literally just fights for fun now. It's her hobby. Like even though she was the champion and even though she's number one ranked bantamweight, like she's like, look, I don't have to be here. I just really like doing this and I love doing it, but I have other things in my life. Like she's there for the joy of the game. And I feel like that gives her so much more liberty when she's in there because she's like, yeah, I win, I lose. Like, you know what I mean? But she's confident in her skill set because she does know how good she is. But at the same time, she didn't make her whole life about that one thing. And whereas on the other side of it, in the meetings, you know, Juliana and her coach, they're already talking about the title shot that they've earned. And they're already talking about the fact that, you know, other girls with worse records in the division were getting title shots and wait till I, you know, win this fight and then demand my title shot. And I'm like, fight Germaine to Randamie. Like, you know, like, if you do win, you're right. You probably do deserve a title shot, but don't overlook the woman in front of you because she's incredible. You know, she's incredible. But I do think part of the problem too is that Juliana, because she had injury and, you know, she had a baby, so she's been not very active. She's only fought like once a year, you know, for the last several years. So I'm just hoping she comes back and gets some momentum because she is really good. And she's somebody that is so competitive and she is going to be such a competitive fight for a lot of women. But like, she just needs to get some momentum going again, I think.
Yeah. Just back to the drawing board for her. Don't mourn this one too long. Get back in there and just get some wins again.
Right. But in the meantime, Holm looked amazing, like amazing. And the cool thing about her, 38 years old, like she just keeps leveling up. And, you know, she's talked about how she really wants to become a real full mixed martial artist. And, you know, during the week, like I was talking to her and saying on stuff, like we were talking, I was like, yeah, there's a part of me that like wants to just see her and Irene box. Like I just wanted to see them box. But at the same time, she's like, look, I'm trying to get back to the belt and become a real mixed martial artist. She said, before I was a boxer, you know, who did MMA. And she's like, now I really, you know, feel like a complete mixed martial artist. And when you see Irene had the highest takedown defense for any woman, her takedown defense in the whole UFC was only second only to John Jones. And so the fact that Holly took her down in every single round was really incredible. And she just looked so amazing. And, you know, I will say there was a part of the time, like around 3, I was like, I'm getting dizzy. Like for me, if I was Irene, like having to chase her down and circle the whole time, like I was like, oh my God, like I would have been exhausted and so frustrated. So I credit Irene for like not freaking out at like having to circle the whole time and try to get her down. But Holly just did everything right. And at the end, she was really going for the kill. Like you could tell she was really trying to make a statement of like how committed she is to getting back to the title. I thought she just looked awesome.
Holly looked phenomenal. I mean, she played her game. Holly is a southpaw fighter, and southpaws have certain tricks, certain games that they like to play. And it reminded me a bit like Lyoto Machida. He likes to do that. He likes to back up and he'll blitz forward, back up and then blitz forward. Holly does the same thing. You saw that forward blitz where she goes left hand, right uppercut, numerous times during the fight. And it was always there because the cage was never cut off. There was never a hard cut. You can see the entire fight was that like a half circle. It was always a circling Holly, kind of circling to her left, and her opponent following her the entire time, and Holly would blitz when she felt the time was right. The other thing that she's got that very, very snappy front side kick.
Yes.
So whenever she feels like an opponent is closing the distance too fast and she's not ready to blitz, Holly's not ready to blitz, she'll throw that front side kick to the midsection or the face. It pushes them back, takes a little bit out of their wind, and then Holly's able to reset. And she was able to play that game to the T the entire 5 rounds, with every single round with about a minute left, saying, you know what, I'm going to work for this takedown. And the old Holly Holm, I feel like she would have gone for the takedown and then maybe went to the second transition if not getting it, and then maybe bailed on it, because we don't want to fill our arms up with lactic acid and now we're tired and now we're the sluggish, slower striker. Holly said, I'm going to commit to this. Every time she went for it, she didn't have it on the first one. She didn't have it on the second one, but then she would continue fighting, extend that leg, get the trip, get her down. And then there was also a scramble that ensued on the mat, and she would work that dogfight position and then get on top and secure it. I remember her going to her corner one time, and her corner is so organized over there at Jackson Wink with John. You know, they would give their piece, and then they would say, you know, Jackson, you go. And he would say his thing and say, you go. And so they would all have about 15 seconds to give the advice. And I remember one time they said, look, when you get to the ground, keep your head in the center of the chest, secure the position a little bit more, don't let her push you off to the side. The next round, she comes out, follows the striking instructions to the T, gets the takedown, puts her head in the center of the chest, secures the position before going to ground. She listens so well. Yeah. She's breathing and relaxing. She's such a veteran inside of there. She was saying, I'm still new to the sport, and it blew my mind. She's not only has a tremendous amount of UFC fights, boxing fights, kickboxing fights. She's a former world champion. But for somebody at 38, about to be 39, to still have the mentality to say, look, I'm learning in the sport. I'm growing in the sport. That was the best Holly Holm I have ever seen. And maybe it wasn't the toughest opponent. Her opponent, not taking nothing away from her opponent, but her opponent is great. But she's faced other opponents that were world class, that were world champions. And so this wasn't a world champion opponent for her, but we've never seen such an evolved Holly Holm. The ground game, the striking, and the cardio. I've never seen her cardio look so good. She's always been we know how she looks. She's always got an 8-pack, and she's always got she's got guns. But she was able to turn the dial up even more in that 5th and final round, and she gets done, and she does a backflip again. And before the fight, I'm looking at her pacing, and I go, Holly, girl, you're 38 years old. You're going to wear your legs out. Stop jumping and pacing when they're calling your name. Right. She didn't slow down a bit. She was dialed in to go at 85 the entire time, and she did it for 25 minutes. I was blown away. I remember tweeting after the Holly on a mission. Holly on a mission is someone you don't want to mess with, and this was Holly on a mission. And if she continues to be this type of fighter in every fight, people are going to have big problems unless they make dramatic changes during the fight to cut off the cage, put her against the cage or something. But if you're going to let Holly walk the dog the whole time, let her lead the dance, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, no, she looked amazing. I thought it was the best performance from her. And I agree, like at the end, in the 5th round, like, she was really going for the kill. And like, it was playing out kind of like right in front of us. And, she came close, you know what I mean? But you could hear her, you know, she always kind of has that key-up with a lot of her punches and stuff anyway. But like, you could see and feel the ferocity that, you know, she was really just going for the kill there and really wanted to make that statement. And I agree that like Aldana, she knocked out Ketlen Vieira. Like, she's good. That's the thing. Like, when you were able to neutralize somebody as good as Aldana is, you know what I mean? Like, and frustrate her like that. I think that was a real, that was a bit, such a dominant performance. Aldana will definitely grow from this, obviously, having been in there with somebody so good, and maybe she'll, do more. I don't know what she's going to be most frustrated by, if it's like a footwork thing, or, you know what I mean? What's going to upset her, because she never gave up, though. Like, you could see it in her, and she would still land some good stuff. And you could see, in her corners, they know that the time is going away and it's just getting desperate. And she went to try to like hunt her down and go for the kill. But yeah, Holly was just too good. And like you said, those side kicks and everything, like she just was so good at controlling the whole fight. And, like she does, obviously want another title shot. She's not giving up anytime soon. And she, it's funny with when you're talking about the coaching, Mike Winkeljohn's the only coach she's ever had, because she, after being going to cardio kickboxing or whatever, and like she had gone into his class. So he's the only striking coach she's ever had. So she was telling us that even when she was doing all the boxing, people would ask her like, hey, when are you going to get a real striking coach? Like, when are you going to get a real boxing coach? And she's like, well, what do you mean a real boxing coach? Like, I got Wink and like, we're winning. Like, look what we're doing here and stuff. And so it really is incredible. Like, that's been her coach since she's 16 years old. It's amazing to me.
You could see it in elements of her game, because when I think of Valentina Shevchenko,
same thing. Yeah,
she's amazing, and we see her do certain technique, and you could tell that she has done that technique 10,000 times. When she throws her spinning back fist, when she does a certain combo, we go, this is something that every single day her coach knows her so well, her sister knows her so well. They go, okay, I'll go 5, you go 5. I go 5, you go 5. They do the same technique every day, and that's probably part of their warm up. So when they do it, it's effortlessly. It's not like I'm thinking about the strike. This is in my DNA. Yeah. And we've seen that with Holly Holm, because she's had the same striking coach for so long that her and Mike Winkeljohn know, okay, these are your high percentages. These are your low percentages. We're always building, but we will never let your high percentages fall. We will never let them get low. So every time we come to the gym, we're going to work that 2-3-2-3 blitz. We're always going to work that. Anytime we get close, you pop me in the stomach with that side kick. That will be how we move for life. Then we're going to add other things like takedowns. And so you can just see it in a game. It's how she trains. It's how she moves. Yeah. Because of having the same coach that knows her so well, that knows her body mechanics and knows her percentage game so well, they play to it. They play to it beautifully in this fight. For Aldana, I want to say this real quick. I felt like what happened in that fight for her is that they said, Holly's a southpaw. You're an orthodox. We got to play the outside foot game. You always have to work to the outside. So you being the orthodox fighter, you have to move left. Holly, being a southpaw fighter, she doesn't play that game where she has to be outside. She prefers the inside game. Yeah. And so it became a game of cat and mouse, because if Holly was willing to move left and Aldana was trained to only move to her left, it became a circle. They're eventually
exactly. That's the thing. I got dizzy. I was like, oh my God.
And so it played into Holly's game, because that's what she wanted. It needed to be Aldana or her coach saying, you know what? I know we trained for months on end, taking that outside step, because it puts your power hand down the crosshairs. But we need to abort this mission. We need to go and cut off the cage right now. And I know it's putting you in danger of her power, but we're behind. We're behind right now.
We got to make adjustments.
I feel like that's what it was. She was doing the right thing, taking the outside angle. But when Holly moved so well and wanted the outside angle for her combinations, there had to be an adjustment, but the adjustment wasn't made.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're thinking too. Round 4, it was sort of like, hey, you guys, you got to change the game plan up here, because what you're doing isn't working. And, they were, definitely saying that on the broadcast too. But again, like Irene will be better from this, you know what I mean? She got in there with a champion, you know what I mean? She's going to learn from that. She's the first Mexican woman to headline a UFC card, which is totally cool. I mean, it's a big deal for her. She's a young woman, like she's got time. And I think Holly made a great case. And, there's potential that Holly and Germaine could rematch at 35 because Amanda is going to be defending at 45 for her next fight against Megan Anderson. So it's going to be a while before Amanda defends at 35 again anyway. And so you could have, like I said, Germaine was ranked number 1 coming into this fight. And so you could have Holly and Germaine rematch at 35 to figure out who does get the next shot at Amanda. So that is something that could potentially happen. Or, maybe they'll just give it to one of them. I do wonder if, there's a part of people that were sort of like who wanted maybe Aldana and Peña to win just for like fresher blood type thing. Mm-hmm. But, the veterans were still like, yeah, no, not yet.
Right. And also I get what you're saying because we see that a lot. We see the veteran win, but it's the veteran that kind of is always like win one, lose one kind of thing.
Right.
But in this case, this was, as we said, this was the best Holly Holm we've ever seen.
Absolutely.
And so it makes me excited for her future again. If it was a Holly Holm who barely squeezed by, but she won because of that experience in the cage, got a last-minute takedown type of thing.
Right.
She was more dominant, more versatile than we've ever seen her in her career. And she seemed to have better legs underneath her at almost 39 than she did earlier in her career. I don't know what type of cardio routine she changed up. She's always been a great in-shape woman. We've said that. But she never stopped moving her feet this entire fight. And it was supremely impressive. So I'm excited for her next fight.
Yeah, and I think, I think she would give Amanda a hell of a fight. I think it would be really, really good. Like, I think it'd be really, really good.
That style, I think she would be competitive, yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I was impressed with Kenney, who just absolutely tenderized his opponent. Like, he just kept landing everything from his left side. And he was so smart because he'd like land him to the body and then the guy would cover down here and he's like, bink, I'll just tag you in the head. And like, he just worked him so well. Saw him later on. He actually did get a quick turnaround. He was hoping to stay here. He was saying he wanted to get a quick turnaround. It turns out he's actually going to fight Nathaniel Wood on UFC 254. Nathaniel Wood was here in Fight Island last time, and he picked up a win. He's a young guy from England. I really like him a lot. Actually, he's the Prospect is his nickname, and he is a prospect. He's really good and is just a smart kid, good head on his shoulders. But Casey is going to be fighting him, and I think that's actually going to be a really, really good fight. So Casey was going to go home today and like go home for 10 days or something and then come back. But yeah, they gave him a quick turnaround, and I was impressed.
That's awesome. I love how like on Fight Island these type of things happen. These type of like you can do some crazy stuff because once you're there, you're there. So try to make the most of it.
Yeah, and then Kyler Phillips. The Matrix, he had that great win over Cameron Else, and I saw both of those guys. And Kyler, like he didn't even look like he was in a fight. Like he just, he was flawless, and so he was very excited about his win. But Cameron was pretty bummed out. But it was a short notice fight for him. Like he literally got out of quarantine on Thursday or so. We had our fighter meetings on Wednesday. He was still quarantining in his room. He had to do our fighter meeting on the phone. And I was talking to him, and he's pretty gutted that it didn't go his way. He's really, had overcome a lot in his life, and he's a former elite paratrooper for the British Army. I'm like, dude, what? Like, pretty intense. And I was talking to him after, and he was bummed out, but I was like, look, you're here now. It took a short notice fight. It was competitive first round. Like, you lost or whatever, but you're here now. You deserve to be here. Just you'll be all right. But he was pretty bummed out. But like, dude, you took it on such short notice. You know what I mean? Come on. So I'm glad he's here. He seems like a good guy. And other than that, I'm trying to think who impressed me. I think those are the ones that I was like, wow. Yeah. And Vendramini. Right, the very first fight, Luigi Vendramini, who came out and knocked him out in 1 minute and 12 seconds. Like both Vendramini and Ayari have been gone for 2 years because they had like injuries and different things, and then they come back. And he's a Factory X guy, with Mark Montoya and stuff. Had Alexander Hernandez in his corner with him, and got real emotional with his dad afterwards and stuff. And it was just like you could see like the relief of coming back and winning that fight after 2 years away and all that struggle. So so that was cool for him to get a win too. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I hope I had the same type of feeling 2 years off for me, and I come back and get a win in 1 minute, and then I'm uninjured and go on to the next one. That'd be great.
Yeah, you will. Well, so like I was saying, I'm here for one more week. Next week it's Corey Sandhagen and Marlon Moraes. So that is going to be fun. So I'm here for one more week and then heading home. Then I'll have a couple weeks off, and then I'm working that Uriah Hall Anderson fight. Oh.
That's awesome. That's a great fight.
It is going to be a great fight. All right. Well, cool.
Guys,
folks, our
hello,
producer,
guys.
Wade Eck, you can follow him on Instagram and Twitter and all that. He also puts these up as audio downloads at mma.audio, so you can check them out there. For me, KB Heat on Instagram, and Karyn Bryant everywhere else, Karyn, and Bryant Lake. Kobe, Alan, where can everybody find you?
And follow me as well, guys, at Alan Jouban on all of my social media. Check it out.
And folks should really be following you right now because Eric Williams is taking really great pictures of you, and there's just some really cool stuff that you're doing during your camp.
Yeah, Eric Williams, E-Will photo on Instagram. He's great. I mean, he's one of the guys that are one of the top photographers when it comes to just blending a bit of timeless classic portrait type pictures with sports and entertainment. He's got some great stuff. And so I'm blessed that he's going to be kind of documenting this camp. So you can check out some of those pics on my page or his page as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And hold on, I'm not sure if Wade is trying to send me a message right now. I can't tell.
Can you guys
hear me? To mention something else?
Yeah, just for a moment, I wanted to jump on. I wasn't sure you could hear me. I just want to thank Esther Lynn for everyone who follows this sport.
Yeah,
Esther Lynn has chosen to step away from the sport of MMA. She's leaving MMA fighting. Her contributions to this sport really cannot be surpassed. I mean, she has done some amazing work. And I just want to let her know from all of us how much we appreciate her.
Oh, that is very nice. Yeah, no, Esther's great. And literally she's leaving because of the freaking online trolls. And the woman is a photographer.
She's actually leaving because she hasn't shot any MMA photography since March.
Well, right. That too. And she was, but that was the thing is she was like, well, I know it's kind of crazy to leave a job when a lot of people don't have jobs. But I know that was also a big part of it was how toxic the community got. And she's just a really sweet, empathetic woman. And it was just kind of crushing her soul, I think, a lot of the time to see stuff that people would say. And it's well, it's terrible. She's so talented. So yeah, I wish her the best. Alrighty. Well, that is it then. Abu Dhabi, like I said, I know I look a little crazy. I got the puffy face and the crazy hair. Don't care. I don't even know what time it is. I don't know what day it is.
Fine.
But anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. Yeah, and we'll see you next. The next one will be back when I'm back in LA. I go home next Sunday. Get back to Vegas Sunday night. I go home to LA on Monday. So we'll get one out next week after the event, after I get back to the States. So thanks for checking it out.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.